There's a woman I want you to picture. She's in her late 40s. She trains 3, 4, sometimes 5 days a week. She tracks her food. She hits her steps. She's been doing this consistently for years, and her body feels worse than it did before she started. Her knees ache. She has issues with her shoulder, her hips. She's sore 3, 4 days after a session that should have been manageable. She can't sleep through the night. She's gaining weight even though she's eating less than she used to. And she has this kind of quiet, exhausting thought on repeat. What is wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with her. She's just training a body that's changed, using rules that didn't. So by the end of this video, you're gonna understand exactly what shifted and what to do about it. Not another program, not a new set of exercises, but a completely different way of measuring what's working and what that actually means. Problem number 1, you're training under the wrong rules. Here's the thing nobody tells you when perimenopause starts. The rules change, not your worth, not your discipline, not your potential, but the rules. And if nobody told you the rules changed, you just keep doing what you've always done. Maybe you do it harder, you do it more often, with less and less to show for it. Here's what's actually happening inside your body right now. Estrogen and progesterone don't just run your cycle. They regulate how your muscles repair after training. They control how your joints feel day to day. They manage inflammation. They affect your sleep quality, your stress response, and how long your body needs to recover from that physical demand. So in perimenopause, which for most people starts somewhere in their early to mid 40s, those hormones start fluctuating. Not disappearing, but fluctuating up and down. They're unpredictable. And that fluctuation makes your body significantly more sensitive to training stress. So that workload that felt totally fine at 35, at 45, it wrecks you for 3, 4 days. That's not weakness, that's biology. But if no one explained that to you, you just assume you need to push harder. And then pushing harder under the wrong rules is exactly what breaks you down. I want to tell you about a client. I'll call her Karen. Karen came to me at 48. She'd been training 5 days a week for 2 years. She did CrossFit 4 days a week, long walks on the 5th. She was eating clean, high protein, no processed food. She was tracking everything. And then she found, oh, I'm gaining weight. My knees are hurting when I go downstairs. I'm exhausted by noon. She hadn't slept through the night in 8 months. So when I sat down with her, she said, I think I just need to be training harder, or I need to cut more calories. I don't know what else to do. And here's what her body was actually telling us. She was in chronic stress. Her training load was too high for what her hormones could support right now. Her recovery window had gotten longer, but her program hadn't changed. So every session was piling into inflammation. She hadn't cleared from the last one. She wasn't under-trained. She was actually under-recovered. So we pulled her back. We changed her type of training. We changed the volume. We started measuring her recovery, not just her output. And within 6 weeks, her sleep improved. Within 8 weeks, her knee pain was largely gone. And within 12 weeks, she was lifting more than she ever had, right? Not because she did more, but because we changed the rules. This week, ask yourself an honest question. Am I still training the way I did in my 30s? Same frequency, same structure, same assumption that soreness means progress? If this answer is yes, then that's not failure. That's just information. But it means first we've got to change, right? We've got to change the strategy, not your effort. Problem number 2, chasing exercises instead of building strength. I want you to count something with me. How many workout programs have you started in the last 12 months, 24 months? 1, 3, 5? Now for each one, can you name the specific thing that you actually got stronger at? A movement you built. One clear, measurable thing. If you can't, you haven't been training, you've been exercising. And those are not the same thing. Here's why program hopping feels productive, but isn't. Every time you switch programs, your body goes through an adaptation phase, right? You're sore, you're learning new movements. You feel like something is happening. And then around 4 or 5, that soreness fades. You stop feeling it as much. And then you think, oh, this isn't working anymore. I need something new. So you switch. Then you restart that adaptation phase over and over forever. Here's what happens, right? That cycle, you don't actually get stronger because strength is built through progressive overload. Muscle is built with progressive overload over time. You have to keep adding load to the same movement pattern systematically over months for real strength to accumulate, for real muscle to be built. When you switch every 6 weeks, you never get there. And in perimenopause, this matters more than ever because muscle and strength and real measurable strength is one of the primary things that protects your joints, loads your bones, stabilizes your blood sugar, and makes your hormones easier to live with. More movement does not equal more strength or more muscle. You can move every single day and still be significantly underpowered for what your body actually needs. I had a client, I'll call her Michelle, 52 years old. She found me when she was working out 6 days a week. She had 2 HIIT classes, 2 yoga sessions, 45-minute walk, plus whatever she found on YouTube that week. And she was exhausted, right? Her hips hurt. She had this constant hip flexor issue. She gained 12 pounds in the last 18 months. And she was absolutely convinced that the answer was to find a better program. On day 1, I asked her, like, what are you training towards? She looked at me like I asked her a trick question. Like, what do you mean? I'm just training to stay healthy. So tell me, how strong strong are you? What can you hip thrust? What can you deadlift? She didn't know. She had never tracked it. She'd never even been given a target. So I tested her. Her hip thrust, one of her primary strength indicators I use, was like 45 pounds. For context, I want women in their age and stage as a foundational to be closer to 135 to 150 pounds. She wasn't lacking effort. She'd been working out 6 days a week for 2 years. She was lacking a strength standard to train towards. So we pulled back her volume significantly. 2 strength sessions, 1 walk, and a recovery day built in intentionally. And we gave her a number to chase. 6 months later, her hip thrust was 180 pounds. Her hips didn't hurt. She'd lost weight that she'd been holding on to for 18 months. She had built 3.5% more lean muscle mass in that time. And she felt the strongest that she had ever felt. So right now, I want you to write down the last 3 workouts you did. For each one, answer this. What specific thing was I building towards? Not what was I was just trying to get fit. Not, I was trying to burn calories, but what number, what weight, what measurable marker of strength were you working towards? If you can't answer that, then you don't have a training problem. You have a clarity problem, and clarity is what we fix next. So the obvious question now is, okay, Sheila, what does strong enough actually look like? Because here's the truth. Most women have never been told, right? Nobody sat down with them and said, here's the actual standard for your body at your age at this stage of life, which is key. And without that standard, you're still guessing, just with better equipment. What strong enough actually means after 40. I want you to reframe the goal entirely, because I think most of you have been chasing the wrong thing. You've been looking for the perfect exercise or the perfect program split, the perfect combination that finally makes your body do what you want it to do. That's not the goal. The goal is to be strong enough to build lean muscle, strong enough to protect your joints from the inside, because joint stability isn't about avoiding load. It's built by the muscles around the joint. Strong enough to give your bones the mechanical stress they need, because bone density responds to load, not to cardio, not to yoga, but to load. Strong enough to feel genuinely capable in your daily life, not just surviving it, right? But moving through it with ease and with confidence. That's the real goal. And most women have never been given that number. They don't know how to get there. Here's the thing about strength in perimenopause that changed how I coach. There are thresholds. Below certain strength levels, training feels fragile. You get hurt more easily. You need more recovery for less output. Your body is working against itself because it doesn't have the muscular foundation to handle the demand that your body, is going through, right? That you're putting on it. And above those thresholds, training shifts. Not easier necessarily, but safer, more sustainable. Your joints feel more stable because the muscles around them are doing their job. Your energy becomes more predictable. Your recovery speeds up. The whole system starts working with you instead of against you. This is measurable. This is not motivation. This is physiology. And your lower body strength specifically, that's the foundation, right? Everything else is built on your strength. It protects your knees, your hips. It loads the bones most at risk, right? For density loss after menopause. It improves how your body handles glucose, which directly affects your energy and your weight and your mood. When your body is strong enough, the entire system becomes easier to manage. I want to tell you about a client I never forgot. She came to me at 49. She'd been genuinely training, not just walking for 8 years, but like 8 years of a personal trainer, a gym membership. She was pretty consistent. When she found me, she was so frustrated because despite all of that, her body felt fragile, wobbly, like she couldn't trust it. On day 1, I tested her baseline. Her hip thrust, for example, 65 pounds. Her squat, just her body weight with poor depth. Her single leg balance, she couldn't hold it for more than 4 seconds. 8 years of training. She was not weak because she hadn't worked hard enough. She was underpowered because she'd never really been given a standard to build towards. She'd never had a real plan. She'd been doing a lot of things, but she'd never been told what actually mattered. So when I showed her results, she went quiet for a moment. She was like, no one has ever measured me like this before. That assessment changed everything about how she trained, because now she has a target, not a program, but a standard. 12 months later, her hip thrust was 185 pounds. She told me it was the first time her knees didn't hurt going into hiking. She was 50 years old. She felt more athletic than she had in her 30s. Not because she worked harder, because she finally knew what she was building towards. This week, answer this honestly. Do you know your baseline strength? Can you tell me right now, what can you deadlift? What can you squat with actual load? If you don't know, that's not a failure. That's just where we start. But it means before you do one more workout, you need an assessment, not a program, an assessment, because you cannot train towards a standard you've never been given. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I get it, standards over exercise, but what does that actually look like week to week? Because this is the part that makes everything sustainable. And this is where most programs completely fall apart. Why standards outlast every program you've ever tried. Let me show you the difference between a program and a system. A program tells you what to do. A system tells you what you're building. And that distinction is everything, because programs end, standards don't. Here's how this works works in practice. One of the primary standards I build with every woman inside ShesPrime is lower body loaded strength, the ability to safely move and control significant load through lower body with control, with progression over time. Now, the exercises I use for that standard rotate constantly. Hip thrusts, deadlifts, goblets, split squats, Romanian deadlifts, many variations. The exercise depends on where you're at in your training cycle, like how you're recovering, what your joints need that are weak, what phase of the program she's in, then the exercise changes. The standards stay the same, building lower body strength and muscle safely and progressively. That's why this approach works in the long term, right? But program hopping is never gonna work because when life gets hard, when work blows up, when sleep tanks, when you travel, you don't abandon the system. You just adjust the exercises. You protect the standard and you never lose the thread of what you're actually building. Here's the other piece that makes this different. We don't just track what you lifted. We track how fast you're recovering, how your sleep is, how your energy holds across the week, how your symptoms are behaving, how much life stress you've been carrying, because all of that shows up in training. Hormones don't just live in a vacuum. They show up in your recovery. A woman who slept 4 hours because her teenager was sick should not be training the same session as a woman who slept 8 hours and had a calm week. That's not an excuse to skip, but that's intelligent programming. And when you treat training like a real system, when you're reading what your body is telling you and adjusting it based on real feedback, that's when the progress will happen. It's not just something you hope for. It becomes something that you can actually see and measure. I had a client go through a brutal stretch last year. Work crisis, sick kid, terrible sleep for like 3 straight weeks. Under her old approach, any program she'd done before, she would have just pushed through or broken down or quit entirely, right? And just felt like a failure. Here's what we did instead. We kept her in the gym. We kept her training to standards, but we rotated to a lower demand exercises that still served the same standard, but lighter load, more controlled tempos, shorter sessions. She never missed a week. She never broke down. And when her life stabilized, she picked right back up where she left off. No restart, no getting back into it, no guilt. She just kept building. And that's what standards are based on. That's what a system does. You don't have to be perfect. But right now, what I want you to do, write down one strength standard that you want to hit in the next 16 weeks. Not a program name, not a challenge, one number. Like, what do you want to be able to hip thrust? That's a great start. Or what do you want to be able to deadlift? Or what do you want to be able to squat? Or what do you want to be able to do for an upper body strength? Write it down. That's not a goal, that's an anchor. And that anchor is what makes every workout mean something. If training has started to feel harder than it should, if you're doing the work and you're still feeling worse, it is almost never about effort. It's about the rules that no longer fit in the body that you're in. You don't need more motivation. You don't need more variety. You need better standards, and standards that account for your hormones that are shifting, how your recovery actually works right now, what your body genuinely needs to feel strong, to feel stable, to feel capable, not just this year, but for the next 20. And that's why I built with the women inside ShesPrime, right? If you're here in Vancouver, the first step is a ShesPrime assessment. We measure your strength, your movement quality, and your recovery in person. Then we build out your 16-week foundation from real data, not guesswork. If you're outside of Vancouver, the digital program gives you the same standards, that same standard-based approach step by step, and both are linked below. If this gave you something real today, subscribe, because this is what I do here. Real information for real women in a real stage of life. Share this with someone you know who's been working hard and is wondering, why the heck is this not working? She needs to hear this.